Why does a tournament that happens once a year manage to bring entire countries in South America to a complete standstill, while in Europe it often goes almost unnoticed? Why do South American fans cry, fight, and argue for decades over a single match, while European fans treat the exact same trophy like an obligation? The truth is, the Club World Cup was never just football for us. It was never just a trophy. It carries history, inequality, pride, and identity. When a South American club faces a European team at the Club World Cup, it's not just a football match. It's an entire continent trying to prove it still matters, that it still resists, that it still can compete in a sport that's becoming more unequal every year. And if that sounds exaggerated, it's because you don't fully understand what's really at stake in this matchup. Today, you're going to understand why the Club World Cup carries an absurd amount of weight for South Americans. A weight no other tournament can match. We're going to talk about history, money, and identity. We're going to understand why this title changes the story of entire clubs, lives across generations, and why losing a Club World Cup often hurts more than losing a Copa Libertadores. This isn't a debate about who's better or who has more trophies. It's about why this game means everything to one side and almost nothing to the other. By the end, it becomes clear that the Club World Cup turned into something much bigger than football. It became a symbol. For a long time, world football was divided into two very distinct worlds. Europe, with organization, strong leagues, and growing infrastructure. And South America, with raw talent, passion, creativity, and improvisation. But unlike today, that balance actually existed on the pitch. In the 60s, 70s, and 80s, South American clubs weren't afraid of facing European giants. Quite the opposite. They often won. Hellas Santos faced Europe's biggest teams and beat them. Flamengo in 1981 destroyed Liverpool. Grêmio, São Paulo, Nacional, Boca Juniors, River Plate, these clubs didn't step onto the field as underdogs. They stepped on the field expecting to win. Back then, the Club World Cup was treated as the true world championship for clubs. Whoever won was recognized as the best team on the planet. There was no debate. But football changed. And it changed fast. Europe realized football meant money. A lot of money. TV rights exploded. Massive sponsors arrived. Leagues were run like corporations. Billion-dollar investments became normal. Meanwhile, South America fell behind financially. Clubs became more and more dependent on selling players just to survive. Selling stopped being a choice and became a necessity. Today, a great South American player rarely reaches his peak playing on his own continent. He leaves early, very early, often before he even becomes an idol. That shift completely changed the Club World Cup landscape. Right now, the financial gap between a Champions League winner and a Copa Libertadores winner is absurd. European squads are worth 5, 10, sometimes 20 times more. Salaries are incomparable. Infrastructure is incomparable. Preparation is incomparable. And yet, when a South American club reaches the Club World Cup, the expectation is still to win. And that's exactly where the obsession is born, because winning the Club World Cup today means challenging the logic of modern football. It's proving that money doesn't buy everything. That budget doesn't guarantee victory. That organization alone doesn't step onto the pitch. That's why every South American victory became legendary. That's why these titles are never forgotten. Today, everything revolves around the Champions League. It became the center of world football. The most valuable, most watched, most respected competition on the planet. But South American clubs don't play in the Champions League. So how do you compete for global respect? The Club World Cup became the answer. It's the only moment of the year when the Libertadores champion faces the Champions League winner. No excuses. No hypotheticals. No internet debates. Just 90 minutes, sometimes 120, to decide it on the field. That's where South America tries to prove itself to the world. That's why Corinthians 2:01-2 isn't just a title. It's identity. That's why Flamengo 1981 is talked about like it happened yesterday. That's why São Paulo's 3 world titles became historical reference points. These achievements cross generations. They don't belong only to the clubs. They belong to the entire continent. They became arguments, collective memory. and pride. And if you're starting to understand why this trophy means so much to us, it's worth leaving a like. It helps this kind of content reach more people who live football the same way. On the other side, the perspective is completely different. For Europeans, the Club World Cup is an obligation. They already win everything during the season. Domestic League, Domestic Cup, Champions League. The Club World Cup just shows up on the calendar as another appointment. If they win, nobody celebrates that much. If they lose, it's an embarrassment. There's no glory-only pressure. And that completely changes how they approach the tournament. For South Americans, that match can be everything. Many clubs go decades without returning to the Club World Cup. Some never return at all. That final is often a once-in-a-lifetime chance. That's why the win becomes a tattoo. That's why the loss becomes trauma. That's why the pain runs so deep. At its core, the Club World Cup represents something simple, but powerful: being seen and being respected. It's the moment South American football stops the world and says, we're still here. That even with less money, less structure, and less visibility, it can still compete. Maybe that's why losing hurts so much. Because it's not just losing a match. It's losing the chance to prove something to the entire world. The Club World Cup isn't just a title for South Americans. It's memory, pride, and resistance. And as long as inequality exists between continents, this game will always mean more to us. Now you understand why the Club World Cup weighs so heavily on South America. But there's an even more curious detail: the reason Europeans will never feel this the same way. That detail changes the entire discussion. And it's in the next video already on your screen. Click it and keep going with me.